Imagine waking up one day to discover that everything you thought you knew about God might be completely upside down. The familiar Bible stories, the comforting image of a benevolent creator, everything could be part of an elaborate deception. This unsettling idea drives the controversy behind the Gospel of Judas, an ancient text that paints Judas Iscariot not as a villainous traitor, but as the only disciple who truly grasped Jesus' secret message. In fact, it claims the God worshipped by most people might not be good at all. These radical teachings were so alarming to the early church that the document was declared heretical and buried for centuries. When it finally resurfaced, it reignited questions about the nature of divinity, the authenticity of religious traditions, and whether we've been following a cosmic trickster masquerading as God. Add to that the hypnotic regressions of Dolores canon, sharing revelations that echo similar themes, and you have a perfect storm of speculation, intrigue, and, for some, a crisis of faith. In this 10-minute journey, we'll break down how such a text could challenge 2 millennia of Christian teachings. We'll explore what the Gospel of Judas actually says, why it was suppressed, and how it aligns or clashes with other Gnostic ideas. By the end, you may find yourself rethinking not just who Judas was, but also the very nature of good, evil, and the divine. The Gospel of Judas first emerged in the early centuries of Christianity when countless groups vied for spiritual influence. Unlike today's uniformity in mainstream Christian doctrine, the 2nd century was a battleground of ideas, with each faction claiming to preserve Jesus' true teachings. In this volatile setting, the Gospel of Judas dared to propose that Judas was no mere traitor, but a vital figure chosen by Jesus for a clandestine mission. According to this gospel, Judas held unique wisdom that others lacked. He alone recognized that the God worshipped by the other disciples was a false deity, a cosmic ruler of chaos intent on keeping humanity imprisoned. This notion directly opposed the rising orthodoxy of the time, which depicted God as the ultimate embodiment of love and goodness. As you might imagine, any text challenging the core image of God was too disruptive to survive out in the open. In an effort to shield believers from what church leaders deemed heresy, influential figures like Saint Irenaeus labeled the Gospel of Judas immoral. Over time, this document fell into obscurity, only to be rediscovered nearly 700 years later. Its resurrection begged modern Christians and seekers alike to ask, what if the God we've been worshipping is not who we think he is? Early Christian leaders, wrestling with the need to unify doctrine, faced a critical problem. Differing versions of the Jesus story threatened to fracture the fledgling church. Texts like the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were carefully curated to present a cohesive and uplifting narrative. Meanwhile, unorthodox writings, especially those that challenged the goodness of God, were systematically suppressed. Saint Irenaeus' Against Heresies stands as a watershed moment in this campaign. By labeling the Gospel of Judas not just as wrong, but also as evil, he signaled to believers that reading or even acknowledging such a text could imperil their souls. This strategic dismissal set a pattern for centuries. Conflicting viewpoints on the nature of God and reality were often buried under accusations of heresy. Yet the Gospel of Judas persisted in the shadows, its very existence a testament to the power of forbidden knowledge. When fragments of the text resurfaced in the 1970s, it reignited the timeless tension between orthodoxy and exploration. Should we limit our spiritual understanding to approved narratives, or dare we examine every clue, even those deemed dangerous? One of the most jarring revelations in the Gospel of Judas is the portrayal of God as a shadowy entity, an arrogant archon or demiurge who revels in human subservience. Instead of the loving creator, this figure is depicted as a cosmic trickster orchestrating sacrifices and chaos to maintain his dominion. Judas, in this telling, is handpicked by Jesus to reveal the falsehood behind this deity. In a narrative twist that feels more like a psychological thriller than a sacred text, Jesus supposedly confides in Judas that the others are cluelessly worshipping a malicious force. The real God, it suggests, remains beyond the grasp of conventional worship. This concept shatters the traditional dichotomy of hero and villain, recasting Judas as the only disciple with the spiritual depth to accept a horrifying truth. Such an idea upends centuries of theological teachings, causing many believers to recoil. How could Judas, the quintessential betrayer, actually be the hero? And if the God we know is not the true God, does that invalidate the bedrock of Christian faith? These questions highlight the Gospel of Judas as not merely a historical curiosity, but a profound challenge to how we define faith, loyalty, and divinity. Modern interpretations of the Gospel of Judas often intersect with the work of spiritual researchers like Dolores. Known for her pioneering hypnosis techniques, Cannon claimed to tap into past life memories, many of which allegedly shed light on Jesus' life and teachings from non-traditional angles. In her book, They Walked with Jesus, she explores episodes and revelations that echo some Gnostic ideas, suggesting that official narratives may only scratch the surface of deeper spiritual truths. Cannon's transcripts introduce a cosmic, almost quantum perspective to the story of Jesus. While she didn't necessarily call the biblical God evil, her subjects often described layers of reality populated by higher beings and illusions that entrap souls. This resonates with the Gospel of Judas, which implies a hidden spiritual hierarchy beyond the physical world. Could it be that these parallel views corroborate the text's claims about divine deception? For many, Cannon's work offers a new lens, that the controversies surrounding the Gospel of Judas may reflect broader cosmic principles still not fully understood. If consciousness can transcend ordinary notions of time and identity, perhaps the dividing line between true God and false God is more elusive than we ever imagined. To fully grasp the implications of the Gospel of Judas, we need to place it within the broader spectrum of Gnosticism, a diverse set of early Christian and mystical beliefs that emphasized personal, hidden knowledge, gnosis, as the key to salvation. Gnostics generally saw the material world as a trap orchestrated by an inferior or malevolent god figure known as the demiurge. In this worldview, the highest divine realm is pure spirit and love, vastly removed from our flawed physical reality. Souls that inhabit human bodies often suffer spiritual amnesia, forgetting their origin in this higher domain. Works like the Gospel of Judas speak directly to awakening that dormant knowledge. Instead of bowing to the conventional creator, Gnostics sought to commune with a more ineffable true source beyond space and time. This context sheds light on the text's portrayal of Judas. His perceived betrayal might be a pivotal step in unmasking the demiurge and guiding souls to real liberation. If everything you see is orchestrated by a false god, sometimes you need an extreme act, like Judas's betrayal, to break the spell. And that, many Gnostics believed, was exactly the role Judas played. It's not difficult to see why the Gospel of Judas endangered the early church's power structure. By the 2nd century, church leaders sought to consolidate authority by linking their teachings directly to Jesus' immediate disciples. This gave them both moral legitimacy and the claim to an unbroken lineage of truth. The notion that those disciples might have been worshipping a deceptive God effectively tears down the very foundation of ecclesiastical power. If the pillars of the church were built on the teachings of men under the sway of a false deity, then the entire institution could be called into question. This wasn't just a theological disagreement, it was an existential threat to the church's survival. By branding the Gospel of Judas heretical, early leaders safeguarded the official canon and strengthened their hold on Christian doctrine. And so the text was hidden away, deemed too subversive to endure. Only in modern times, as our curiosity about alternative narratives blossoms, have these forbidden teachings re-emerged. With them comes an invitation to question every assumption about faith, loyalty, and the origins of religious institutions. Confronting the idea that the God of the Bible might be a false or malicious force can be deeply unsettling. For centuries, countless believers have anchored their lives in the love and guidance of this deity. The Gospel of Judas suggests that this being may take pleasure in sacrifices, thrives on chaos, and manipulates humanity to ensure constant devotion. The ripple effect of such a claim extends beyond theology, touching personal spirituality, collective identity, and even social cohesion. However, a growing number of seekers find this unsettling message strangely empowering. Gnostic texts often highlight human potential. If we are deceived by a flawed creator, perhaps we contain a spark from a higher divine source. Realizing the truth becomes a liberation, urging us to seek direct knowledge of the divine rather than settling for inherited dogma. In that sense, the Gospel of Judas can act as a catalyst for spiritual self-discovery, forcing each individual to wrestle with what they truly believe and why. Still, the psychological toll can be immense. Letting go of the comforting notion of a benevolent God calls for a leap into unknown territory. And yet, as many spiritual explorers attest, stepping into uncertainty is often the first move toward genuine wisdom. Ultimately, the Gospel of Judas challenges not only our perception of God but also our understanding of ourselves. If Judas, long vilified as a symbol of betrayal, was actually the lone disciple who grasped Jesus' true mission, then we're left to reconsider our assumptions about good and evil, hero and villain. In life, the roles people play are rarely as clear-cut as we imagine. Sometimes, the most despised figure might be carrying a hidden truth. This re-evaluation goes beyond biblical stories. It mirrors our own journeys of self-discovery, where what appears to be a personal failure or betrayal may actually become a critical step toward enlightenment. If Judas stands for anyone who has been misunderstood or demonized for walking an unconventional path, then his story is a clarion call to re-examine the official narratives we accept, whether in religion, society, or even our personal relationships. In that sense, the Gospel of Judas isn't just an ancient curiosity. It's a mirror that reflects our collective need to look deeper, question dogma, and remain open to possibilities that shatter the status quo. It's a challenge to confront the illusions that might shape our reality and the illusions we might create within ourselves. As we wrap up this exploration, remember that the Gospel of Judas doesn't merely flip a cherished biblical tale. It poses radical questions about the very essence of faith. Could the God billions revere be a cunning masquerader? And could the greatest villain of the Christian story be the true seeker of hidden wisdom? Even if you reject the text's assertions, it serves as a testament to the complexity of early Christianity and the power of suppressed ideas. Embracing such heretical notions can feel uncomfortable, even dangerous. Yet spiritual growth often requires stepping outside our comfort zones and facing challenging possibilities. Whether you view the Gospel of Judas as a piece of history, a coded message, or an outright distortion, it undeniably expands the conversation about good, evil, and the divine. It invites us to question how many truths might still lie buried in forgotten manuscripts, and how many illusions we might still believe. Thank you for joining this 13-minute journey into one of history's most provocative spiritual texts. If this video sparked your curiosity, consider subscribing and sharing your reflections below. After all, the true quest for knowledge is never settled. It's a continuous unfolding, one revelation at a time.